So you've only had a week to do work assessing Moderna vaccine products against this new Omicron variant. Have you learnt anything from that so far, or is it still just way too early?
Joe, good morning. Look, I think the answer is yes. We're still just trying to understand this new variant. We're doing a lot of testing along with other producers of these vaccines to just see how effective the current vaccines are at neutralizing. But we still have some waiting time to go, Joe.
So how long until you're able to make some final assessments about the effectiveness of Moderna products against Omicron?
So my colleagues in research and development here at Moderna tell me, somewhere towards the middle of December. I think the key, Joe, is the decisions that they will make and companies are going to make going forward may need to be big ones, and so they need the very best data we can get. So better just to take that extra bit of time, get really solid data, and then decide what to do from there.
And what does the assessment process involve, if you can just shed a bit of light on that for us? Is it 90% lab work but incorporating real-world data too?
I think, there's no single piece of data, Joe, that really is going to drive decision-making for companies like Moderna and for our research and development colleagues. A lot of it is lab work. We're testing blood from people who received the vaccines in the past. You take some of the plasma from those people and you look to see if it can neutralize this new Omicron variant. But I think the other thing, Joe, that we need to understand are the cases around the world. How severe are they? How many cases are there in South Africa? How is it being transmitted around the world? So I think there will be many pieces of data that we're going to get in these coming weeks, and then you have to take them all together.
Moderna CEO Stéphane Bancel said earlier this week he thought there was going to be a material drop in effectiveness of the current crop of vaccines against Omicron compared to other strains. Does it still look like that is going to be the case?
I think a concerning thing about this variant, Joe, is there are 50 amino acid mutations, and 30 of those occur in the spike protein. And of those, 20 we know or believe are associated with immune escape, loss of neutralizing ability. So I think it's a real possibility.
So what's the likelihood that we'll need an entirely new vaccine?
So I think there's many things we can do before we get there. Now, I can say that I think many manufacturers have stated publicly, certainly we are making a Omicron-specific variant booster shot now at risk. We're doing the lab work necessary. We'll get that into testing as quickly as possible. So we're doing the work at risk. But there's many things you can still do. Hand washing, keeping some social distance, mask wearing as needed. That's very effective. It really prevents spread. And then just getting vaccinated. If you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. And now, if you're eligible, get boosted as well. The vaccines we have are all highly effective, and it's likely that they'll give some degree of protection. So those two things together are a great first line of defense. And then, as I say, in parallel and at risk, we can be making other boosters as needed.
Yeah, but you still just don't know at this stage what that degree of protection will be.
No, we don't, Joe. And honestly, I don't think we're going to know, effectively from people around the world for several weeks yet.
Yeah. Does it look like annual boosters will be necessary for years to come?
These viruses, this SARS-CoV-2, the COVID virus, Joe, that's exactly how they behave. They become endemic, but they wax and wane throughout the seasons. And just like flu, as we get typically a flu booster going into winter, it seems likely that people will need some kind of booster, probably yearly, but we'll have to wait and see for COVID as time goes on.
Where are discussions at about the possibility of the manufacture of your vaccines here in Australia?
Yes, so we've been in those discussions for some months now. We're excited about that as a possibility. Been working with the government and with the state authorities. There's tremendous talent in Australia, great science. It would be a really exciting opportunity for us as a company to be able to really partner with Australia.
So what would be the production potential of such a facility, and when could the first Moderna products be made here?
Yeah, so, we can produce hundreds of millions of vaccines effectively. And we can also produce them for all sorts of different viruses. We're working on flu, we've talked about that. And I think, we want to build a facility that really is state of the art. That takes some time. So I would say, Joe, we're probably looking at a year to 18 months to really be fully up and running and producing, but it could even be earlier than that.
Yeah, but things are looking pretty optimistic on that front.
Certainly from our side, we would be very, very excited to get this going. I know, the colleagues back at Moderna have been in discussions now for a long time, and we're very optimistic.
And Paul Burton, for the world to get on top of this pandemic, to limit the number of heavily mutated variants over the coming years, we need to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible around the world. Wouldn't the moral thing for you and your company to do is to waive your intellectual property rights so this can improve the dire vaccination situation in low to middle income countries?
Well, so Joe, look, over the course of the pandemic, we've announced and absolutely continued not to enforce any IP during the pandemic. We've also, donated and provided 110 million doses of the vaccine to African countries through the COVAX agreement. So, we are desperately trying to do everything we can to get the vaccine to people who need it as quickly as possible. And it's worth just thinking about as well, Joe, that when you look at the number of people who have died of COVID in countries around the world, take the UK, for example, it's about 2,200 people per million. The US is 2,400 per million. South Africa is 1,500 per million. So we're trying to balance production and supply of vaccine to nations around the world, and at the same time really get to those areas where the burden of disease is highest as well. So we're trying to do the two together as fast as we can.
Yeah.